he destroyed the World Championships, to put it mildly. One loss against the world's best competition earlier this year.
The most dominant performance at the World Championships that I can ever recall.
Yeah. #1 player in the world right now. Seth Manfield, extremely skilled in the game of Magic. Not surprising to see him with this record. And I'm curious to see how he drafts. Seth is someone who I played a lot of Magic against and with, as far as side drafts are concerned, after limited events and constructed ones too. He always loves to game. He's a gamer through and through, and always stiff competition in those drafts. He knows how to draft. He's very skilled limited.
Most of my coverage that I have done of Seth Manfield and that I have watched have focused on constructed.
Yeah.
Really don't know his tendencies at all. I would imagine he's a fairly flexible drafter, but we'll see here in a moment.
Time to take a look as we are underway here. We'll get that camera situated for you, and we'll see what Seth is considering here. What'll be interesting is if he has any interest in green cards, for example, though I see a rare there in Brutal Expulsion that he might be considering.
A high quality rare, but a significant commitment. You are in 2 colors right out of the gates. I guess his out to selecting that card is the Gideon's Reproach, but the gap in power level between those 2 cards just feels too significant to me.
And he is going to go with the Brutal Expulsion. So the rare is what he's going to select. Now, this doesn't mean he's locked in. You can splash here. You can still be base blue, another color, splash red, what have you. But he's taking Brutal Expulsion right away. Keep in mind, a devoid card, blue-red, a devoid color combination.
It's a very powerful opening. Seth's hands are not necessarily tied. I'm sure he will settle into blue-red if he can, but he might try to play a 3-color deck. He might even just bail on this if the packs in front of him don't cooperate.
Oran Reef Hydra, a rare, a green rare, immediately passed. No one interested in that, it appears. Tightening Coil is Seth looking at right now. And the Oran Reef Hydra is very powerful, but again, passed to Seth right away. And we have seen this with green rares quite a bit here this weekend. Though Seth is bringing it to the front, willing maybe to make a move in.
I think the best overall card in the pack here is the Serene Steward, but if Seth wants to stay on pace with his Brutal Expulsion, then Tightening Coils is likely the pick.
And it's going to be the Coil. So the Hydra, the green rare, no thank you. I'm not making a move into green either.
Just roaming around the table, looking for a friend.
Yep, that's somebody else's problem. Let's see where we go now. Looks like Miss Strider here. Wavewing Elemental. Spell Shrivel as well. Spell Shrivel so good for Finkel in that draft. Curious how highly Seth ranks that card.
So it's good here for Seth to see that there's a number of blue cards in the pack after the opening that he's had here. What is a little bit concerning is no red. We really have not seen a red pick for him to move into. So maybe Seth has to move into a 3rd color here. As long as he can keep taking blue cards, he can just hold tight, keep doing that, and hoping red opens up a little bit. But the absence of red so far has to be a bit concerning.
Merc Strider, the pick there for Seth. See where he wants to go now. Remember, Expulsion, not a card that he has to play. You'd love to be able to play that card. You'd love to have a perfect blue-red devoid deck, get to play your first pick, but the packs dictate what you can do. Seth not really going to force anything. Tightening Coils #2.
It's a repeat of the previous pack. This is a fine pick. It still keeps him in pace in blue, but the absence of red cards has got to be a little concerning here.
Manfield still maybe looking for a red card. Maybe still looking for a 2nd color. Maybe considering some green now here. Oran Reef Invoker perhaps an option. Maybe a 3rd Tightening Coils. You have to draft a pretty specific deck when you have Tightening Coils. You really want to have flyers then.
Yep.
Demon's Grasp, also an option now. Maybe Seth thinking, time to maybe work my way into black as the 2nd color.
I don't think Demon's Grasp is quite good enough to make a move on here, given Seth's desire to stay in red. It looks like Manfield agrees, but again, no viable red picks just yet.
It's another Tightening Coils. That was the last pick. Now there is a Mist Invoker there, or Mist Strider, excuse me. Perhaps he goes that route now.
With a Brutal Expulsion, he has some incentive to be trying to do a little bit of ingest. It's a reasonable pick here.
So Mist Intruder is the selection. Now what's next here for Seth? There's a retreat to Coral Helm as far as non-color card is concerned. Slab Hammer, which is a card we haven't seen all weekend, actually.
I've not seen it in play once.
Yeah.
Pretty deck specific. I think you need to be aggressive. Ideally, a landfall strategy to be using that one.
Looks like Eldrazi Devastator is the selection. Oh, there are some red cards there. They don't really fall into the devoid area.
Yep. You get a Demolish if you want to do that sort of thing.
Yep.
An ally with no other allies. And I like this pick from Seth. He's just taking a reasonable non-red card, I think under the expectation that the Brutal Expulsion either has to be bailed on or it's going to be a splash.
Undo Greathorn the choice. Angelic Gift, very quickly the choice here for Seth.
He could have taken Undo Champions out of the previous 2 packs, but if he's already concerned that red is going to be a splash, taking a double red card seems ambitious.
Oracle of Dust available here. I think the Angelic Gift is very interesting in his deck because giving something flying when you have 3 Tightening Coils might just be where he wants to be.
Yeah, if that ended up as the last playable, given the number of Tightening Coils he has, that wouldn't surprise me.
So that's a notable pick, as is Wavewing Elemental, because now he realizes, I got to get to the skies. Dispel looks to be the weapon of choice here for Manfield.
A fine sideboard card. Good to pick 1 or 2 of those up.
Looming Spires, perhaps? No, he's going to go with the Blighted Land. And then last but certainly not least, don't get a great look at it. Blighted Steppe was the last pick. And now we'll watch Seth kind of go through his first pick here, or his first pack, excuse me.
If red was open in front of him, I think that Seth's first pack would have been spectacular. As it stands, it's just fine. It looks like he's made a slight commitment to white here, though I don't think he has anything strong enough that moves him into that necessarily. It's possible if he opens up a good red card, especially one that can fit into a devoid strategy, he may just take that. Blue looked pretty open there in pack number 1, and if he can cobble together enough playables out of red in pack 2, maybe he can still stay in blue-red. Because there is no red in pack 1, it means that there'll probably be red coming back in pack 2, because no one to his left is likely in red.
Yeah.
It works that way when you got cut pretty hard in pack 1. There's a rationale that I can move into the color in pack 2 because the person to my immediate left should not be in that color as well.
It's time to take a look. Stasis Snare here, among other options for Manfield. I believe a Desolation Twin. Not sure how high he values that card.
A Deathless Behemoth as well. If he takes the Stasis Snare here over something like the Behemoth, which is just a very powerful generic card, he is committed to white. Stasis Snare is the most powerful of the cards objectively, but if he's not certain what his second color is going to be just yet, this represents a pretty big risk. If he takes the Stasis Snare, he's almost locked in at that point. I think that he's not certain enough about his second color yet that he's willing to give up a little bit of power to gain a lot of flexibility.
Well, he's going to take Deathless Behemoth. Leave himself a little open.
Stasis Snare is attractive there, and I think Seth feels like the most likely second color is white, but he's not so certain that he's going to give up on that level of flexibility.
Smite the Monster is a card that he brought forward very quickly. Kozak Chandler, and boy, there's that blue common that was so good for Finkel and was so good for many yesterday there in Clutch Occurrence.
And this still allows him to keep the door open on any second color. He just says, take a blue card. He knows he's going to be blue.
I think it'd be very tough for him to pass it. It's such a good common. Many believe the best blue common.
Yeah, I cannot see passing Clutch for an inferior white card when you're not certain you're going to be white.
Yeah.
Good to check. Good to see what might table, but I think Clutch is a pretty straightforward pick there.
Clutch was the weapon of choice. Now there's a Void Winnower in that pack. That's an expensive Eldrazi. There are, it appears, a couple of red cards here, and that might interest Seth. Card like Touch of the Void.
Remember, the most powerful card that Seth has drafted up until this point is still the Brutal Expulsion. He has a huge incentive to put that card in his deck if he can. Seeing a Touch the Void this late in pack 2 represents to Seth probably that there's a good chance that I'm going to be getting more red cards down the pipeline in pack 2. If you can fill out pack 3 with the blue cards you were seeing then in pack 1, you might be able to get to 23 or 22 cards and still get to play your best red cards.
Touch of the Void, that's the selection. So now we're going to take a look at the next pack. Uh-oh. Now things are getting really interesting here for Seth because blue's open.
Well, he's definitely locked in blue.
Yeah.
That's not moving here. He doesn't have a whole lot of awaken at this point, but he does have a clutch. And I think the tie collar represents enough upside here that, you get one or two more awaken cards, and suddenly it's the best card in your deck.
But he's going to go with a Deathless Behemoth,
Okay.
second one of those. And that card is very good as well.
Yes, there's nothing wrong with this card.
I do agree so far as the assessment of he does not have very much awaken yet. Blue-red's not really much of an awakened deck. If he was blue-white, maybe we see him go that way.
Oh, that's a
stinger.
That's a stinger. Although Seth could just end up being 3 colors. At this point, I feel like Seth, if he knew this was happening, would have preferred to have taken the Stasis Snare.
Yeah, Noyan Dar right there. He could be blue-white pretty solidly right now. Would have picked up the very late ally. Instead, he's just going to go with Incubator Drone, so that's notable as well. He's just going to move on from Noyan Dar and not let that affect his decision-making too much.
I think with Touch of the Void, when he made that pick, he was sort of saying, I'm going to be blue-red. I'm going to try to cobble together as many red cards as I can. And
is that a second Brutal Expulsion?
You get paid. Sometimes you get paid. But that's what I was saying. At the end of pack 1, you got to feel like red's going to be coming to you in pack 2. He passed nothing.
Yeah, he passed no red cards.
This is surprising, but it's not totally out of line.
Well, it's a 2-color card.
Yeah.
And Seth cut blue so hard in pack 1, he didn't pass any blue cards, and he didn't get past any red cards pack 1. So as a result, the red is going to flow that way, and the blue is going to flow that way. So this isn't too surprising. Getting paid off in a big way there is Seth. Maybe considering the Vestige. Yeah, I think he's going to take the Vestige of Emrakul. Okay. Another Devoid card. So now he's working his way into blue-red Devoid pretty well here. His top end is beautiful. 2 Deathless Behemoths. Got to be happy with that. Really like the way this deck's coming together now.
Yeah, this is great, and you can see the logic employed here by Manfield. Yes, he saw no red cards in pack 1, but it means he should have been getting red cards in pack 2, which has definitely happened. Even if he gets cut from red in pack 3, blue seemed open enough that he should be able to get to enough playables, and pack 2 has been going very well for him.
It's like he's just going to take a straight green card there. Nothing too exciting.
I think he's probably saying I'm not playing another copy of Coils here, and that green card's good.
I think 3 Coils already.
Yeah, got a lot.
Desolation Twin is interesting if he thinks the game's going to go very long.
I don't think he's quite in the market for that sort of card. I mean, I don't think he's going to play anything else. And remember, the tiebreaker is it's a rare.
Yeah.
But it looks like he's just going with the land instead.
I'll take the Looming Spires. Gonna ignore your tiebreaker as usual. Some people are just flush, man.
Sure. I mean, if you've got money to spare, yeah, go ahead and cut off a comment or whatever. But 3-0ing the draft and having 6 or 7 rares at the end of it, that's how you actually win the 8-4.
Pathway Arrows was the selection. Looks like Shatter Skull Recruit here for Seth.
Pathway Arrows can also be a solid sideboard card against some very linear Devoid strategies.
There's a Wavewing Elemental. And one thing I'm keeping track of right now as Seth is drafting, because his deck is coming together really well, but I'm keeping track of the creatures that he's drafting. Because of the Tightening Coils that he drafted in pack 1, the more flyers, the better. You know, a card like the Vestige of Emrakul, I don't think very exciting in his deck. Yes, it's nice because of Devoid, but you're just going to be running into creatures that you have Tightening Coils down.
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal. I would be surprised if something like Vestige of Emrakul got cut. I think that he's way more likely to de-emphasize the Tightening Coils than he is to get away from creatures that don't line up the best with it.
Yeah. You know, maybe he only starts 1 Tightening Coils. No guarantee that he's going to play all 3, of course. But
and it's a good sideboard card for the right matchups. Yep. You don't really care. If you're playing against a very, very straightforward beatdown deck, you just bring him in and you don't care if you're running into things. But
Seth's going to organize things by curve. You're going to find a second Brutal Expulsion here from Manfield. It was his first pick in the draft, and he got past one in the middle of pack number 2. He's got to be pretty happy with how things are working right now. Though, right now, what do you feel like any holes that he needs to fill?
I think his early game is not great.
Okay.
I would like to see a little more emphasis on the earlier parts of the game. I mean, his top end looks great. He's got several copies of Deathless Behemoth, 2 copies of Brutal Explosion. I think he's favored in most long games, but the beginning of his curve is not great. He can always shore that up if he wants to by playing the Tightening Coils. That's a way to get out of the early game, but that card's a little low in power level, and I'm sure Manfield would like to find better options.
The world champion getting ready here for pack number 3. We'll see what pick 1 is here for Seth as he's working his way towards a pretty nice blue-red deck here. And get our eyes on that pack. Vile Aggregate, an option here for Manfield. Clutch Occurrence also in the pack. You see him bring those forward pretty quickly. Pilgrim's Eye 2. In case there's any splashing to be done. Looks like the rare is another copy of Desolation Twin. He wasn't interested in that before. Can't imagine he's interested in it now. There's a Coral Helm guide floating around in there, but that card's been known to table. And it looks like he's going to go with Vile Aggregate.
Maybe a bit of a surprise over Clutch of Currents, but I think Manfield's probably identified the same problem that I mentioned, which is the early parts of his curve are not very good. I don't think the gap between Vile Aggregate and Clutch of Currents is that huge for the blue-red Devoid decks, and just getting an early quality blocker has to be a high priority for Manfield at this point.
With how his deck is constructed thus far, as you mentioned, he just wants to play a little bit of a longer game, it appears.
Yeah, and this card has spots of being extremely powerful with the right draws.
A complete disregard is in this pack. Among other options, look like Spell Shrivel he's brought forward pretty quickly here. Forerunner of Slaughter in case someone is in black-red. You never know, Seth is feeling a little frisky and wanting to splash.
This is not a great pick here for Seth. I don't think there's a better option here than the Spell Shrivel, but you know, he's already working under the assumption that most likely that Pack 3 is going to be a little rough for him based on what we saw in Pack 1. He shouldn't expect red cards coming. There's a lot of pressure on the first 3 or 4 picks to produce the goods, because after that it's unlikely to be the case. And you would like to see something a lot better than the Spell Shrivel, but that's the best card for Manfield's deck, so he has to take it.
Nettle Drone is a pretty nice one to see there. Curve filler, trades aggressively. Really good into Void deck. I think there's a lot to like in this pick.
Yeah, and Manfield did not see a red card this good in all of Pack 1. Yeah. So this is a bit of a coup here.
Took the Nettle Drone very quickly to Manfield. Can't wait to see what the next pick is going to be for Seth. Again, a blue-red deck, 2 Brutal Expulsions. Filling out the curve pretty nicely here. I think he could use another spell or 2.
Yeah, but I think he's going to be able to get to enough playables here. The question is just how many copies of Tiny Coils he's going to have to play. But he is at least picking up some red playables in Pack 3, which was not my expectation going in.
Seth considering a Fire Mantle Mage here. Dispel also in the pack. Shatter Skull Recruit in case he wants to get another one of those. And as you do take a look through packs, of course, you want to be cognizant of a card like Lithomancer's Focus.
Good to know about.
Yep.
He's seen one in Pack 1 as well. So, and there's just a lot of those kind of cards floating around. Have to be aware of it.
The next pack here for Manfield, that's got a foil plane, so I know what you would take.
Cloud Manta's good enough that I would pass the planes at this spot.
There's also an Incubator Drone. Incubator Drone with that Devoid and Eldrazi. It can make some Scions, help ramp up to those Deathless Behemoths, so there might be some interest in that card there.
It's power versus synergy at this point. It looks like Manfield's going to go with the synergy pick.
That will also help activate that Nettle Drone a couple times a turn. So Incubator Drone, that's the second one of those, by the way, is the pick.
He's also got Deathless Behemoths in his deck, so there's an interest in getting some Scions.
Coral Helm Guide might be of interest here for Seth. Doesn't look like too much else is going on. Imagine he would get paid off in Pack 2, and then Pack 3 would be a little bit worse than the previous one.
Yeah, this is no surprise. He's still, because blue was so open in Pack 1, he's still getting fine blue cards in Pack 3. It's just red's very dry, and that should be no surprise to Seth.
Let's see what we have here. For Seth, not a lot going on. Looks like a Sure Strike. Might be the best option here. Yeah, he'll take the trick.
I'd be shocked if it made the deck, but it's the best card in the pack for him.
Let's see what's next here for Seth. As now we're getting to the point where cards are wheeling around the table. Looks like he's going to go Tunneling Geopede here. 3-mana, 3/2. Land enters the battlefield, deals 1 damage to each opponent. Nothing too exciting there.
It's not synergistic with anything else that's going on with Seth's deck, but as a last playable, you can do worse.
Let's see what's next here for Manfield. He has not seen a card like Coastal Discovery. He's certainly not going to see one now. So the Awakening theme and the spells that he would have access to, not as good as we say Finkel's deck was last time.
No.
I think Seth has done a pretty nice job of rounding things out in this pack. Looks like he's going to take Snapping Gnarlid. Territorial Bailoff will move along.
Every drafter we've watched has done the last picks of the pack, due diligence, remove a couple good green cards.
Yeah.
It's just everyone's collective responsibility to knock a little power out of green.
Can't let them have it all.
Yeah.
I mean, they get a lot of it, but you can't let them have it all. Natural Connection's gone.
Wow.
That's a pretty late one of those. Would you agree?
Yeah.
The Ghostly Sentinel?
3 reasonable white cards in the pack there at the end.
Ooh, I love getting that Scour from Existence at the back end there, too. The games are going to go a little bit long here with Seth's deck.
That's a just like Dispel, a card I'm happy to have 1 copy of in my sideboard, even if I don't plan on playing it main.
Yeah, I like having access to that if I think my opponents are going to have Eldrazi and all of that stuff. So I think as we kind of analyze Seth's draft here, and he's getting ready to move to his seat and build his deck.